clothing and stuff, and it would be wheeled into the tractor and used there. But if ever needed maintenance or service, the train car would wheel back into technically Swaziland, and the crane engineers would come along and get from South Africa.
Oh, I see. Okay, right, I get it now. Okay.
Help me out. Not Swaziland now, but Swan or something like that. It's the one I can never pronounce it.
Right. Okay.
Eswatini.
How old were you when you left? Okay, so not a 4-year-old then. Okay.
No, it's not I had to learn something in school, but generally that's what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I read a comment. Okay, where
We are approaching the bottom of the hour, and we'll have to start with the session now. Welcome to the IETF 121 IoT Operations meeting. It's a Thursday, and we are already sharing the share slides. It's excellent. With me is Alexei, my dear co-chair. I'm Hank. And we all want to remind you that this session is recorded. There are other details to the, I think you have the control, right?
Yes.
Maybe you do it.
Okay, I hope you all seen Notewell by now. If not, please get acquainted. These are the rules of participation in IETF activities. No take. Okay. All right. So please either use on-site tool, or if you are using the full mute echo, make sure that if you're in the room that your video and audio is off. Just no mistake, everyone. So we have 3 documents in the working group at various stages of readiness, and we have some related drafts. Today we'll have a quick updates on a couple of them, and then we will have a section on charter, re-charter discussion. With that.
Yeah, I want to officially recognize Michael as our primary note taker. If you find anything you want to add to the notes, you're always welcome to help Michael. But thank you for that.
Elliot, that would be great, because Michael, well, to be honest, both of you will probably be running to microphone. So if you can between yourself.
I promise to do that.
You promised to do it badly. Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
so Elliot has a job.
Okay.
He might not provide an SLA like that.
Okay. Please, whether you're note taker badly or otherwise, note yourself in the notes. All right. John, do you want me to drive slides? Well, it's only 2 slides. Yeah,
you
fine.
can drive slides. It's only 2 slides. So this is an update of the comparison of co-op security protocols draft. I uploaded 07 just a couple of days ago, but we have not addressed the received comments, all the received comments yet. Can maybe go to the next slide. So the comments from Marco and Thomas are not fixed. Francesca, my co-author, promised to fix that quite shortly after the IETF meeting. So we will do that and upload the 08 version. The 07 version, the old version has expired, so that's why I uploaded 07. The only update is that I added a reference to the large TLS records with reduced overhead, which is currently in TLS working group last call. And I did not add the things to the table. I just added a reference and a short text that is reduces overhead with 3 bytes, as is done for a lot of other. I don't think we want to wait for this. Yes? No question? Yeah. And then the good news is that CTLS is stable, but does not seem bad news. Maybe is that it doesn't seem to be so much activity, but maybe it is in pause for formal verification or not. The chairs, I assume the chairs will sort these things out. The current decision was that we will hold it for CTLS to be published. And plan is not to add. I added this, and I guess if there's any other small updates, we will do small things, but we'll not add any major things that make us wait for any new mechanism or protocols. Any questions or comments?
Well, one comment from the chairs would be that we can chase down a little bit the CTLS dependency. I heard this being a topic at the hackathon, actually, so we will can give some updates on the list after this meeting, I think.
Yeah, great.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So our next presenter is not here, but maybe we can do the recharting and
Yeah.
if he okay.
Change the order.
All right. So we started this discussion at last IETF, but I think this is a more formal proposal on what the new charter might look like. We don't have to agree in the room. I mean, will still be sent to the mailing list and such, but I think having some discussion whether this is reasonable would be great.
Yeah, and there's some recap here. So a lot of the items in the ops area working group seem to be a little bit mixed, I want to say. And now that Mahesh is taking care as an AD of that part of ops, he tries to separate some of the items there. And IoT ops seems to be the place in ops where IoT-related certification could go. Our charter currently formally does not allow for standards track documents or BCP documents. So that is basically the background of the idea. And I think we have prepared a nice comparison presentation, what we could change. But this is all basically up to the discussion and for the group to decide.
Right. And the background is, the other side is Michael, Hank, and I got together, and this is kind of our draft proposal. Doesn't have any really other formal standing more than that. It's just something to look at so that we can see if people agree or disagree. Okay, so basically what I've done is our current charter and then trying to show deleted or added stuff. Strike through is the stuff deleted. Text in bold is the text added. It's quite a long charter, so it's over 5 slides. This is what we have. the only really important thing on this slide is that list of working groups we need to collaborate with well, some working groups got deleted because there are a few of them, some of them basically closed. If people think there is any other working groups that we should add, that would be great. Alexandra? Oh, hello.
Yes, hey. An obvious one to add is SHIC working group, which is the one that replaced the LP1 working group working on the SHIC technology.
Can you ideally add this to the notes then? That would be the easiest way to actually track. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, similarly, I think you should add the SCIM and ASDF working groups here as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on. I think the most substantial stuff is on the following slide. So let's just, I mean, people can still send us suggestions for additional removal, so that's fine. So, because of what Hank mentioned, that some of the ops, so working group documents, there is a desire to move them elsewhere, in particular, potentially some MUD-related work. And our charter doesn't allow us to do any standards track or BCP, but obviously the charter was there for a reason to, prevent us just boiling the ocean and doing random stuff. So this is trying to carve out specific use cases when we'll do work. And on the next slide, in specific suggestion. Yes, Warren?
Yeah, just as a reminder for those who don't know the history of this, the working group was originally designed as sort of just a discussion type group, more like MOPS. And so the original plan was that it would just kind of get together and be a central place where people would talk about stuff. And I think that that's why the original stuff was more, not actually going to publish anything, just chat. But I think it's moved on since then. We just need to keep in mind,
Yeah, I think the first or maybe even first 2 years, we were a forum for just people chatting about things, and then we kind of solidified with specific deliverables. And
I think also,
I mean, people can still bring and we can still chat about stuff, but we have actually working documents now.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Just it's also some of the people who initially had very strong views about discussion only on the ISG anymore. So.
Ooh, okay. Alexander?
Yes. So one thing that I don't find it in the charter, but I've been working on Yang and CoreConf NetConf for IoT basically, and IoT Ops is in the Ops area, in the operational area. So isn't somehow I think it's today it's not in scope at all, right? The things about CoreConf, Yang to CBOR, like a lot of this work is happening in the core working group, right? And in some sense, these are things that are related to the area in which IoT Ops lies. So isn't there some kind of a way to get, is this a place to talk about these things? Should they be discussed here?
We can talk, and I wouldn't have slightly puzzled look, but so are you suggesting to move some specific IoT Yang related things here, potentially?
So it's a question. I'm not suggesting for that to be moved here. I'm just, when I saw that this working group, I thought, okay, well, so there are things that we're doing here that are also being discussed here, right? And then
sure, I think My suggestion would be give some specific proposal. I think, like, it's kind of hard to agree or disagree, like, in general. I think if we see some documents which is possibly a good fit, and if it's another working group, there is agreement of chairs and ADs of this other working group to move it over, then we should. So
Yeah, I mean, it depends also on your ideas of how the working group will be developing, of the ADs, of the core working group. So it's like a lot of things that are happening. But by just looking at the names and where things are, I was like, oh,
okay.
Yeah.
To be honest, we just kind of looked at the documents, that type of documents that was suggested to move over, and we tried to propose a charter to match it without being too generic. So we can still update it if there is agreement, from the group. And Warren. It's okay. Well, look, yeah, that's the first time I've heard about this. So yeah, if you have specific proposal, do send it. Even if it's some upcoming work that you think will be happening, that's probably, I mean, ideally, if you have some draft names, that would be great. But yeah, Michael?
Michael Richardson. So I think that should say life cycle documents, not live cycle. But just because that might be really confusing to people that didn't realize it's a typo.
Oh, life cycle. Yeah, sorry.
I think you have another slide with more details, right? 2 of 5.
Yeah. Yes, sorry. Absolutely. Can you minute this and then I'll make sure.
I did put it in the
fine. Then
already,
I'll edit the. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Specific details are this.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's really what I stood. I wanted to speak to and explain and
before we move on to that item, I wanted to come back to the core conf part.
Yeah, and I had a comment about that.
Okay, then move on.
Yeah. Alexander and I actually, I guess we collaborated on those 2 documents. They were in core. They started in core when CBOR didn't exist, when IoT Ops didn't exist. They lasted a long time. We also have COMI in the core working group. I think that's going to be I think it's going to be a push to get it through. Mostly I would say due to it's all the same people, like, there's a whole bunch of core people over here and whatever. So in the end, it's kind of really doesn't matter where it happens, for the simple reason that it's going to be the same people anyway. But from a scheduling point of view and a mindshare point of view, and getting the right outside review, it might be a blessing if the Yang experts don't have to sit through OS core group rekeying info. But maybe we're all done that. I don't know. So that's all I'm saying, is all of this people are the same. There's scheduling issues and what else is happening. And that's actually really the same story, to my mind, to why Ops AWG is not working for us. But if at this point, I would say that the next steps in Core Conf are really in CBOR for the Yang replacements, not sending ASCII dates across the wire, for instance, which is what we wind up doing right now. And I think that could stay in CBOR maybe, but yeah. So to Alex's point, that's what I really wanted to kind of respond to, was to me, it's a toss up. It's all the same people, I think, the same expertise, but it's a scheduling question as to mindshare and other stuff. And yeah, that's about it. And I'm going to say I'm probably responsible for most of those words in bold and there. And the final thing I wanted to add, and you're going to speak more about CoreConf, Henk, you have more to say? Or you just wanted to close that?
No, just as an example, there could be the natural progression of CoreConf could be a CoreConf push.
Right.
or something like
Or-
that. And
or
I think that
serve.
co-op has specific characteristics that other transports might not have. So there might be multiple ways to do that. And that is an interesting discussion, for example, for an IoT ops thing. From my no hats, just being a fan of that.
I think that's exactly the conversation we should have across a couple different things. And I think that we may, in that case of that thing, we may actually find that core is, we're back in core because the co-op observe people really are there. But anyway, in all dispatch, we've talked a lot about, you know, what at IOTSF we called the secure usable intranet browser. We've had maybe 2 presentations at IoT Ops about that work. All dispatch had a presentation from Tiru and Dan about that. I understand it's going to a BOF. I think we should let that happen, but I think we should be clear that one of the BOF results might actually be come here. And I think that now fits into our charter, except that maybe it's a SEC working group. Depends on the solution that we want to wind up with, right? Operationally, everyone go get a let's encrypt is one answer. Another side is let's fix all the browsers and TLS to do something else, right? You know, there's like, you know, big kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's good. It's going to be a both.
Yeah. So we need extra time to do that. That's why I'm not pushing like we should just do it here. No, let's have a BOF because we need 2.5 hours of argument to figure that out.
I know this is a lot of ifs, but if some of this work potentially end up here, is the text going to match, or we don't know basically?
It depends on what the solution is, but yeah. Well, we're not a SEC area. We're not probably going to be able to do significant.
No, but I'm sure Warren can talk to SEC ADs and well,
yeah.
I'm personally, I don't care as long as work, you know, happens in the right place and people are happy about, you know, we have a lot of cross area works now.
I mean, to me, that work feels like SEC area. But speaking of SEC area, I think we need to be careful to differentiate between the work that we do here and the work that's happening in Suit. And I know Michael said Suit's going to eventually wrap up and stuff, but there's a very strong overlap in the charter between software firmware upgrade solutions and what Suit has in its charter. So we should talk to the security ADs or figure out, like, we don't want there to be confusion about where the work's happening and what actually is being done. So that last bullet might need to be changed a bunch.
Sure.
Hi, Marco Tiroga. On the relation with other working groups, for the first page of the proposed charter, it doesn't hurt to mention also COSI, I think. And thinking of defunct working groups, instead, there used to be a WIG that had some documents providing implementation considerations, some adopted, some not, both on co-op or SCORE or an IoT stack at large. So I'm not an author of any of those documents, but maybe some of those authors want to resurrect those documents somewhere. And I wonder if this working group is the right venue, considering the new charter, of course.
Okay, again, if you have specific proposals, maybe send it to the mailing list.
Yeah, so Meet Echo shows me a nice page that says success, but doesn't let me do anything.
But we can successfully identify as Carsten.
Thank you. So one thing that I find really ugly right now is the zone identifier situation. And zone identifiers mean something to IoT people. So looking at this specifically from an IoT perspective is not something that we want to do a lot in core because we are not an operational group. This is really about running things and being able to run things on systems that have multiple, what's the name of the thing?
Interfaces.
Yes, interfaces with non-routable addresses on them and so on. So that's just an example of something I would expect to be done here. And probably if I think about core for 10 more minutes, I find 2 more things.
Okay. And as Michael just bumped his head, I think he can make excellent notes about that.
So I'm always happy.
Excellent notes about this, badly. Never mind.
I'm always happy to see mud, you know, wherever it can be slung. but I am a little concerned about the division line between this group and the ops area working group in terms of what's the concept in terms of the split, and not just sling things into from one group to another without having some notion as to what the group is for. And so yes, the IESG was very firm that this group shouldn't do protocol specifications and things. It's just like every other ops group, right? But that doesn't solve Mahesh's problem, of course, of having to figure out how to manage the work that he has that's going on in ops area working group in terms of whatever protocol, if it's getting overloaded or whatever. And so, right, which I think is one of the reasons that things are being slung over here, is that that group is becoming somewhat unmanageable. But I think there's a higher level concept here that we should be just pondering. Maybe it's a 30,000 foot level concept, which is never good to ponder because you don't have any oxygen with which to ponder. But it's, do you like big groups or do you like small groups? Do you like your bite-sized pieces of work to be done in small working groups, or do you like to have a big working group? Now, where you do multiple bite-sized things. The value of having the bite-sized things, you can have a nice, tightly contained charter, when the work is done, and we all love that. The bad part about having those bite-sized groups is that you have to find a couple of working group chairs. You may need to find a slot at an IETF. You end up taking more time or less time than you need, depending on what you're working on. And we end up with 140 slots or whatever it is. And so the nice thing about IoT Ops the nice thing about Ops Area Working Group has been that you really can be flexible with the time allocations based on what people need for any given meeting. And so it could be that what is really needed is a second Ops Area Working Group slot during the IETF meeting, if you're, and maybe a little bit different thinking about how that group is managed, such that the work is done rather than slinging stuff over here. And so I just want to put that out there as one possibility rather than trying to tweak the charter here.
And thank you, Elliot, because that is exactly the counterpoint to it. And we were there was an incentive to start the discussion, and I think that we have to find out where this goes. And I think your point is well made.
Michael Richardson again. If we could solve this with more schedule in-person time, it would be solved already. It's mailing list, mind share, problem, review, getting the right people to look at it, and but more, not just the right people looking at it, but the evidence among the working group chairs and therefore the ADs that it got reviewed. And that's what's very difficult in Ops AWG, where, for instance, we had meetings that was all L2 VPN, and I don't know anything about it. I can't review it. I can't help them, but they also can't help me, right? And it's just too many different directions, and taking a few things out of there to here will help them. They still have 12 directions they'll go in instead of 14. I guess I just don't want to be involved in that traffic accident. So that's all.
So I want to repeat from the chat that Francesca points out that this particular ISG has been pushing for small, tightly scoped working groups. Yeah. So I think that's more to highlight here in this context. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but this, my mental model, there's at the moment this Venn diagram where there's core and where there is all these, I want to say, OPSA content and Yang stuff, and there's a overlap in the middle. So all the core people can't digest the OPSA content, and vice versa, as Michael just said. So and the real problem is that to find that middle ground and make it maybe in part of IoT Ops is the question here. And Francesca is actually in the queue, but Warren is first. So you can, yeah, okay. Very polite, thank you.
He can take the last word. Yeah, no, I was just specifying, since Elliot was phrasing it as, do you like, and it might be good for people to know, like, maybe not everyone knows that at the moment the ASG prefers, like, it's easier to get that sort of tightly scoped work charter compared to a wider. And I'm not saying that, I'm not stating any preference. I'm just saying, so that the working group is aware. If you want to go for something wider scope, that's also, there's going to be a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So Warren Kumari, yeah, I mean, I largely agree with everything Elliot said. My only concern is it seems as though people in Ops AWG weren't really interested in sort of reviewing and doing the work, and it wasn't getting the attention it needed. An option might be to charter another small working group and have it meet during the same time as IoT Ops or something. Like, I'm also concerned because of the discussion we had at the plenary yesterday on, moving into Fridays and then eventually Saturdays and Sundays, and chartering more working groups means more time unless we agree to have working groups share slots like PIM and MBOD used to do. So I don't know.
Yeah, from this chair is like, you tell us, if you want a separate charter, or do you want to try this and see what the feedback is going to look like? I mean, we can just try with roughly this text and see where it lands with ASG. I don't particularly mind. It's already written, but Elliot?
I mean, I don't have any particular, I don't have doctrinaire points on this, right? It's a matter of how the ADs really want to divide the work, as far as I'm concerned, and however they want to do it is fine with me. I really don't. I'm not. I just pointed it out because I think, do we have ops work that still has to be done here in terms of ops work as opposed to protocol development and stuff like that? If we do, then that's great. We can keep this group. We could form another group, but that causes some splintering, in terms of the amount of resources that are needed, et cetera, et cetera. It could just be a balancing test. We don't have to be so doctrinaire as I mentioned, right? It's, however, I think that's however the ADs want to go, and we can keep going on the charter as far as I'm concerned here, and just see how that lands, and then the ADs can discuss it amongst themselves with the ISG.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to what I said. We already have a proposal. Warren, you can take it formally or informally to ISG and see, is this going to fly? And then just see how much support or pushback you get. Okay. Shall I move on then?
I mean, I think that this all originally started as a desire to get the MUD documents out of Ops AWG so they could get some more attention and focus on them. And then while we were doing that, we sort of like, seeing as we've got the hood open, let's see what else we should tidy up in the charter at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I think that's sort of how we migrated here.
Yeah. So the rest of the slide, the text is largely how it was, but because we only allowed informational documents before, this extra sentence added saying, well, we discussed the proposed standard BCPs on the previous slide, and this is the rest of the documents, which is still the same. And then we come to this interesting point that we probably should discuss as well.
As a point of reference, that year is a few years ago.
Yeah, there was something. Yes. Irrespective of the text, I don't think we ever did a formal report. That's.
You said something.
I said something, yes.
Okay. Up to you if you. Okay. I'm okay with that. Less work for me. Yeah, if basically this was a one-off to see because the working group was a bit experimental in structure. Hopefully, we're not completely crazy as far as ISG is concerned, so we can take this out. And hopefully we don't have to produce reports every year anyway.
No, I'm not commenting on this.
Okay.
That's fine. So with the respect to the procedure, what we can do is to put this new version, this first draft of the charter to the list, and whatever direct comment you made here in this session, we can have on the list, so it's as officially recognized as part of a rechartering process. We will call it a rechartering attempt. And then everybody, including our very helpful AD, but also ISG members and other key stakeholders, especially people who wants to have their work at the place where the experts are to get the review they need. Carsten was not here, so we had to bash the agenda a little bit. But I think one of the problems is actually to get the review to finish work and bring it over the finish line. And I think just rechartering will not help with that. So we have to might find also other communication channels to facilitate review of some documents that are basically everybody kind of agrees they're fine, but the review process would require more eyes on it. So maybe IoT Ops can also be a little bit experimental in that front. And if we have opinions about that during that proposal of rechartering, please voice your opinion in that context. Oh yeah, and sorry. Yeah, that's not my fault.
Okay, I know it's not, but okay, sorry.
So go ahead.
Sorry, the front slide is not saying that it's IETF 121. So
Yeah, so this is exactly the slide deck I had in Vancouver. And if you can go to slide 15.
okay.
There is technical content in this deck, but there's also a plan forward. And the plan was to get discussions going on the list, maybe using the topic of the week algorithm, get some pre-working group last call reviews, and maybe have one more update and working group last call. Now, not much has happened, and that's certainly also the fault of the authors, which all were very busy with other stuff. Yeah, if people think this is the right way to do, we will start doing this now.
And with the right thing to do, you mean the third item, or are you already hinting at the fourth item?
Yes.
Okay, so we do the third item.
I mean, if the pre-working group last call reviews say this is garbage, then we shouldn't do a working group last call.
Well, a working group last call can tell you that in the last place.
Yes. Okay, now maybe you can go to slide 9 and just as an example for things that we still have to nail down. So we decided to not only have the classes of low resource devices, but also classes of resourceful devices. And this is, of course, somewhat arbitrary, but I think it's quite useful to have names for these classes when talking about certain functions that you want to put somewhere. So an OpenWRT router just has a very different set of capabilities from a Raspberry Pi or a router in that same class from a smartphone, from a laptop, from a server. So This is the kind of thing that is new and probably requires a few additional pairs of eyes.
You crash out of the table, yes.
Then you read the text, which tells you that these numbers are going to grow over time.
Okay.
Okay, and I think it was slide 7, which has the low resource version of this. So there we also have a few more classes that are rooted in chips that actually were available at the time when we wrote this. Of course, now you can go a little bit beyond that, but I think we still have these 2 classes in practice. The numbers are, there are tildes all over the place here because the numbers aren't so much defined as is the comfortable versus luxury difference between class 3 and class 4. Okay, so that's the kind of part of the document that I would like to have feedback. That's the most fuzzy part. It gets less fuzzy in other places.
Okay. Okay.
Michael Richardson, I feel like I read it like a year ago and I was like, yeah, that's good. Let's go. I don't think it's really, I think I saw that publicly. You said something about the numbers grow. In particular in this one, well, no, maybe, I don't know, ATTs are not for sale anymore. Maybe those STMs are not for sale anymore. They could still be in the field, right? And particularly, people could be scavenging things, as people did do in 2021 when there was a supply chain interruption, and telling someone I need 10,000 class 1 devices for my telescope SETI array is a useful thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you intend that over time these classes would change in numbers, or
Not the first 3, but
I don't think they should. I think that integers are cheap, and just if in 2204 we are all running class 465 devices, that's okay.
And thank you for reviewing it last year and thinking it's okay. I would like to ask, yeah, just let me finish. I'll do. Yeah, so I would like to put people on the spot a little bit, and maybe if we can have some volunteers to pre-review the document. Poll? Well, we can do a poll. Okay, let's do it. Let's make it official then. Well,
Yeah, it's all fancy.
so who reviewed?
Just give me a sec. I prepared a different poll, so yeah, especially if you have a slow system like I have.
yeah. So why Henk is okay. We need to stop using this word review, because that sounds like only if you sign the entire document with your blood, you have reviewed it. And we
No, I think it's kind of might be your interpretation.
It's not my interpretation. It's the interpretation of the people who don't provide reviews.
Look, I would rather have a review who said, like, for example, there are 5 sections and I reviewed the first 3 sections and it's fine. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is still a review.
Yes.
Okay,
I think
fine.
we need to be very specific that looking at a particular aspect of the document is a form of review as well.
Michael, could we put into the notes that review in this context, in the IoT Ops context, always means that you have reviewed either the whole document or a certain aspect of it, which can come down to a paragraph, a term, or a set of sections.
Well,
Oh, that could be done. That is a feedback thing that would be enabling what Carsten just said, but we can have different opinions on this. But this is just one thing that was just voiced, and I think we should at least note that it was voiced. But we can have another note on another opinion. That is not a problem.
What I put in is review. When someone reviews, they should specify what they've reviewed.
Yes,
Exactly.
perfect.
I haven't written any of the notes. One of those Jesus and bread and fishes things.
Yeah.
No comment.
Okay.
So under the specific, I want to say semantics of review, I'm going to start another poll. Because I'm not rewriting this.
Yeah, of course, what doesn't help, it's kind of anonymous. You only know the count. You don't actually know who volunteered.
The same number of people say yes as we have in.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
36 people said yes. That everybody's gonna-
Well, more people said they will review that who already read the document. So I feel inspired.
And
I
it
feel-
is fine.
Oh.
Say so. Then.
People who are willing to review it, put your hands up now or put in chat so we can find you later.
If you're willing to expose yourself here in the working group or on the chat, you're allowed to.
And that's not necessarily to shame people, it's maybe to chase people. That's just helpful for chairs to know.
Well, no. So Elliot also waved. I think you waved. It's a fly away, but I count this as a preview.
Okay. We always love reviews. Better have some review than that. Nobody read it and nobody cares. This is like, yeah. Wow.
So Carsten, officially we're still in the middle of your presentation. How would you like to end your presentation?
Thank you.
Okay. Just a moment.
Yeah, Alexander?
If you want to have the full presentation, on YouTube from one trip.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to say something about the
Yeah,
classes
it's
of
fine,
the
it's fine.
devices here. So I think it's pretty much very relevant as a classification. Maybe some updates, but like we get questions of the sorts like, "Hey, you have this stack that you published in open source. Can we port it to a 16-bit microcontroller?" Because the 32-bit microcontrollers that you're supporting, like they're too big. And it's like, oh, why? No, it's too much pain. But anyway, I think that these type of devices, they will continue to be used. Like, I don't expect for any of these to become obsolete.
But yeah, are you also thinking of like in your open source project saying, well, this is the minimal type of device that we support type thing? Possibly. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and it's like a super, a very portable code that has been ported to multiple 32-bit process MCUs, right? And people are like, okay, we need this to get down to 16-bit because of like cost reduction and so forth, right?
Okay.
And there's one other thing that that I think it's interesting. I don't remember. I don't recall if it was addressed in the in the draft, in the RFC. And basically, that was related to the trade-off between your application code and the networking stack, the code for the network stack. Because typically one of the things is like when we go and when we're discussing with potential customers, and basically for them the network stack we were proposing was like overhead. And basically they say, well, I have my 50K of flash of code for my application, and I don't know, 10K of RAM or something. And even if we said, well, ours is very small, like it's an overhead to that. And this basically pushes them to using a bigger micro MCU, which costs more money. So I'm not sure if that was addressed in this view, where even if you have like a class that's advertised as, okay, we have 100 kilobytes of flash and 10 kilobytes of RAM, actually people would like they would probably expect that to be for their applications. And the network stack, it's plus, like it's eating in that.
So kind of don't forget that it might be part of this, right?
Yeah. So that's one thing, and another thing is firmware updates over the air. So at some point we were discussing with people, and they are like, and they have like, oh, you have so much space, like, and they're like, no, our MCU is like it has, I don't remember the exact numbers, but maybe like 100K of 120K, 128K of flash, and they optimize their application so much that it fits in 60K or 62, 63K of flash, so that they can, whenever they do firmware update over the air, they can store the entire other firmware, so that they can switch it, right? Swap it. So in the end, it was like, I mean, I think this somewhere needs to be said, like I feel in these classes, that, hey, well, this is your these are the specs of your class device, but for a networking stack or something like in addition to what actually the device does, well, you need to be like 10 times smaller than what it has. Like it's not your IP stack has 100 kilobytes of flash to use it.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. We have some choice visual words on the application aspect. We have a completely new set of categories for firmware update. We probably have to marry these two in some form. So this is good input.
Okay, sounds good.
Craig Rodine, I don't know why when I hit the button it doesn't put me in the queue, but I'm
Okay.
in the room.
We believe you.
See
Okay.
through.
Yeah, that's okay.
I try to explain to people who use or make power system controllers how their the CPUs they're using and the resources they have relate to other things, because sometimes they don't think I should be working in IoT. And I try to explain, and this is a fantastic framework because it's so general, and the improvements over the first 7228 are to show higher powered things. But what they care about is how long will this capability be maintained? And it's a little bit related to software update, but it's longevity. They need 10, 15, 20 years, but they also, autos, industrial controls, they like to minimize cost and total cost over the time. So I don't know if that can be added. I know it's complexifying things, but it really matters to the people I work with. Thanks.
Sorry, I haven't.
Yes.
Here.
I know we can.
Okay, I am going to multitask. Right. So the real question I have, so this document's been around a little while, and Karsten, I'm going to ask you to regurgitate a little bit from the Vancouver presentation, which is, are classes the right solution at this stage, or are tags the right solution, or are these really classes hiding as tags, such that you can mix and match? And so the idea is, okay, I've got, a BLE plus, and then, maybe some sort of tagging for CPU usage, some sort of tagging, or even a TLV for memory. You can play all sorts of games here, right? And the question is, who's the consumer? If the consumer is a fairly fancy configuration system, it can eat this stuff up, right? If the consumer is a itty bitty IoT device, which I don't think it is, then it's not going to care. I mean, or that would be a problem.
So right now we have two kinds of scales. One is based on categories or classes, and one is based on SI units. So if you want to know how much power this thing uses, then you probably can say something like 30 milliwatts or something like that. So this is not meant as you go with those classes to your vendor and tell them I need exactly this chip and it's a unique selection. So it's rule of thumb. And so I wouldn't want to put in too much details, but the reason why so many categories have actually been added since 2014 is that we have noticed that our platforms do have certain difference in capability. So does the thing keep wall clock? That's a very important distinction depending on what kind of software you want to do, and it wasn't covered in the old document.
Okay, but forgive me. What I'm worried about, what I'm worried about is the combinatorics here, right? Are we going to get into a situation where you're trying to describe everything with, you know, and you have to enumerate all these classes in a nice big list?
We're not using this for interchange.
No,
we're not.
It's for whether or not you can fit software or
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Or what's appropriate, but there's still a combinatoric problem.
Yes.
Okay. So that's why I'm thinking tags rather than classes.
So for application A, I need 128K application space and a wall clock capability. So yes, that's part of the problem. I cannot discuss this combinatorial stuff away.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is it in terms of the classes, right? Are they? So let's say you have, you know what? Let's take this offline because it's gonna. This is just part of the discussion for the BIS draft. I think I just wanted to raise a concern. We'll talk about it on list and such, but I think I think I've covered my point to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I think let's do it on the list, but I do think the tags actually sound like a really cool idea because I want a solution that has a certain amount of RAM and some flash and maybe wall clock and the ability to add extra flash, right? Not everything will do external flash, and having a thing which is described like, you know, CPU 1 plus F plus W for wireless plus something, HDMI. And yeah, I mean, I realize that kind of sounds like, you know, you go to DigiKey and you check off all the options you want and it filters down to this particular CPU. But it still does feel like that's kind of a class, you know. Okay. Class was a bad choice, a type or grouping of CPU. So yeah, I mean, I realize it would be annoying to rewrite the document, but a tag type system does feel like it might be really nice.
So next in queue is Martini.
Yeah, just maybe a comment how we use it, this 7228 so far, is mostly we just quote it or cite it in a paper so people get an idea what we are actually talking about. And I heard already from others who work, for example, with MPUs, they really would like to have something where they can also say, okay, we use this kind of MPU for our use case. So yeah, it's just to basically define a use case of what you're talking about in your research, in your design, whatever.
Sorry, maybe clarifying question. Do you find the existing system sufficient, or do you think tags are okay? Or
I think the discussion about what they are called is a little bit like doesn't go in the direction I need it for. It can call in class, I can call it tag, whatever. I find the current draft RC useful, but the extension that I made in the draft I find also very useful. So I would welcome the changes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, just about some of the things that we mentioned. Instinctively, I will be really focused on features that are important for networking. Like I don't care if there's HDMI or not on an IoT device. It doesn't concern me in respect to networking. What it's important is like the RAM, flash, MC type of MCU, maybe like I don't know how many, and eventually I'm RTC, like is there on a real-time clock. So these are like very dimensioning factors about that. Everything else is like, well, but I don't care. Like that's application related. And maybe I don't know if there is a secure element or not. So that could be related in some sense to the security of the device.
What about which type of secure element?
That's a question, like that which time? Yeah, that's. I mean, that's related to the security stack. But I'm thinking really if, well, you know, you can have tags or stuff in addition to, well, this IoT device can do a lot of stuff. But other than that, like having 3 or 4 classes, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it will help me more.
So this is Hank with no hat on. Having witnessed the categorization of confidential computing qualities over the last 5 years, the type of an secure element is nothing you want to drag into this ID. Nothing. The existence of something you think is a secure element might be a tag or something, or another qualification like an SI unit. But I think that is for the SEC area to contribute to this work. We really can't, I think, get into the mess of understanding what exactly is encrypted on which channel and which is not, and then in the IoT device it might even not be well documented. So I would ask for either a complementary work or a SEC interop here.
So then I think that could be a very useful thing if, I mean, I may be very naive in that, but if we can get like 3 secure element classes that are very, I don't know, wishful thinking maybe, like level 0, there is nothing, level 1, there is something, but it's not really that secure, which maybe the manufacturers will not be very happy to be labeled like that. I don't know, on level 2, that is integrated TPU with all the protections and stuff. Like, I don't know. And then
I think NIST has some categories also for, you know, well, maybe for HSMs and how resistant they are to various things. But well, some of these systems can be very small, like literally, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so
yes,
adding references to more elaborate categorization systems to the very rule of thumb one that is in the document sounds very good to me. So if you have pointers to these things, please send them.
So this was our last agenda topic. So we have the BIS and we have Michael on the line. Line. Because we are, of course, open to any other business, as the agenda says.
I think that we had an agenda topic, which was from Brendan, who is not available. And that's actually my topic. Brendan is not available. And I believe that we'll need a co-author to help him get that document over the finish line for this working group. And I have a suspicion that the SUIT working group in an hour may have the same conversation. So he's been, denial of service by his boss, as many other people have in recent time. So I would say if you have a desire to, be on a widely cited IETF document from this working group and suit, then now's your chance to contribute and help them get that pigskin over the line.
Well, this is duly noted. Brandon is not missing in action. That he is literally prioritizing work, as you say, step by step. And yeah, let's talk about that in suit again. I think that's an excellent idea. And let the chairs. I don't want to say I want to hunt down. Talk to Brandon again and find a good way forward for him to be satisfied with the content of his document and the progress here in this working group. Having said that, is there any other business that the attendees of this session want to bring up? Going once, going twice. We can give you back about 20 minutes of valuable IETF session time. Have a good rest of the Thursday. I hope the queue at the coffee barista is low. And see you all, some of you in suit. Sure.
So separate the characteristics of that you want to describe. And